WHGE 95.3 FM coming up. The Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. All right. I see you in there going right at the beginning of the show. All right. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and to reverse the brainwashing. Let me get my disclaimer out the way right quick. Okay. Come on. Where is it? There it is.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Yeah, let's get them going. All right, let's get them going here. All right, big news today. All right. And yes, if you've been paying attention, I guess maybe this wasn't actually unexpected. And let me say it like this. Go. Let me get right into it. I really don't give a damn that Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning from Congress. Not a tear, not a whisper of sympathy, not a maybe she learned her lesson. I don't buy this whole kinder, gentler rebrand she's been pushing. Please. This is the same woman who turned the U.S. House of Representatives into a sideshow circus of conspiracy theories, white nationalism, and violent rhetoric. The same woman who mainstreamed extremism, amplified lies, and made cruelty her political brand. I don't give a damn. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she didn't stumble into this. She built her career on bigotry, QAnon nonsense, on harassing school shooting survivors. Low like the hussy. On cheering political violence, on propping up white supremacist talking points with a smile. She helped open the door for the fascist movement that now threatens this entire country. And now, after years of pouring gasoline on American democracy, she wants us to applaud her for walking away from the fire she set. Absolutely not. Let's be clear. MTG resigning isn't repentance. It isn't redemption. It's retreat. She's leaving because the chaos she helped create is finally swallowing its own architects. She's leaving because her influence is waning. She's leaving because even the extremist movement she empowered no longer needs her. It's already metastasized into something even uglier. So spare me the soft focus interviews, spare me the new tone, spare me the revisionist history where we pretend she was just a brash or she was just brash or misunderstood. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of the worst purveyors of political extremism, white supremacy, and cruelty this Congress has ever seen. And the damage she did will outlive her House ID badge. Good riddance. Because accountability doesn't end with resignation. The wreckage she leaves behind is real. And the fight to repair what she helped break is far from over. WHGE 95.3 WHGE 95.3 FM. This is the Open Eye. Hey, Brother Bob. All right, I see you there, Sherry. All right. Hey, Ron, I see you. This is the Open Eye. I know usually I start with truth, but since that hussy was news today, I started there. I usually start with history. Let me tell you. Hey, let's tell the truth about Rome. See all these movies about gladiators and the influence of Rome and what have you. You know, when I was a kid, that's the same lie they fed all of us was spoon-fed to me too. The Romans were great inventors. The Romans were brilliant innovators. The Romans were master merchants. None of that is true. Not then, not now, not ever. That's right. Rome's genius wasn't invention. It was theft, violence, and logistics. And a bunch of thugs. The real innovation was industrial scale plunder and a war machine designed to strip other civilizations down to the bone. Let's break it down. Rome was the original smash and grab empire. Rome didn't invent technology, they stole it. Rome didn't dominate trade, they seized other people's trade routes. Rome didn't build wealth, they looted wealth. Their entire economic engine was conquer a people, plunder their cities, enslave a chunk of the population, take their innovation, and claim it was all Roman. This strategy works up until you hit the geographic limit of your military technology, and that's exactly what happened. They marched, they pillaged, they enslaved, until they couldn't get any further. Romania, literally named after Rome, is where that war machine ran out of gas and ran into a wall of reality. Let me tell you about the road myth. That's one of the biggest lies in Western education. The school system told us Rome invented roads. That's one of the dumbest lies ever told. The first person to walk from point A to point B 20 times invented a road. Human beings have been making trails since we stood upright. Of course, we always stood upright. So then they say, well, Rome invented paved roads. Still wrong. Ancient Egyptians paved roads 5,000 years ago using petrified wood slabs to create transport lanes from quarries. The Celts built corduroy roads out of wood long before Rome figured out anything. The Middle East was using early forms of cement on pathways before Rome was even a thought. What Rome did was to take an existing ideal and scale it with military precision. They built the first massive transcontinental military highway system in history. A spider web of hard cement roads stretching across Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia. Designed not for commerce, not for culture, not for beauty, but for troop movement and warfare. Thugs. Rome wasn't building infrastructure. Rome was building arteries for conquest. Excuse me. Let me tell you when Rome struck gold. Here's the turning point. 31 BC, Rome conquers Egypt. Now, of course, by that time, Egypt was well in decline. And Egypt wasn't just another territory. Egypt was the intellectual capital of the ancient world, even when it was in decline. The home of the great library of Alexandria, the largest repository of human knowledge on earth. By conquering Egypt, Rome suddenly didn't need to innovate anything. They just needed to translate, appropriate, and rebrand. Rome becomes advanced only after it absorbs Egypt, Nubian, Greek, Persian, Phoenician, and Mesopotamian knowledge. In other words, Rome didn't rise, Rome inherited, Rome plagiarized, Rome colonized, original colonizers. The empire that invented nothing but claimed everything. Western education paints Rome as the birthplace of civilization. But Rome was more like the world's first mega corporation built entirely on mergers, acquisitions, and hostile takeovers. Their gods, borrowed and renamed. Their architecture, adapted from the Greeks and the Egyptians. Their mathematics, from Africa. Their medicine, Egyptian and Greek. Their philosophy, Greek, which means they came from Egypt. Their religious institutions, stolen. Everywhere Rome went, it stamped its name on other people's genius. Rome is the blueprint for how white supremacy retells history. Erase the origin, steal the achievement, center yourself. The real truth, Africa and the Middle East were original engineers. Let's say it plain. Before Rome, before Greece, before Europe, Africa was the mother of engineering, mathematics, architecture, astronomy, medicine, agriculture, navigation, and statecraft. Rome didn't birth civilization. Rome raided civilizations. And yet the textbooks make Rome the hero. Because the people who write the textbooks look a whole lot like the people who wrote the first colonial histories. The only thing great Rome ever built was a myth. The Roman Empire collapsed over 1,500 years ago. But the Roman myth, the ideal that Europe is the parent of civilization, that empire is still alive. Because that lie is useful. It props up Western supremacy. It erases African brilliance. It rewrites the global memory. Rome wasn't great. Rome was great at taking from greatness. And that part of the story, they never teach in school. But you learn it right here on Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Hey, Frankie. Jafar, I see you there, bro. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. You're enjoying the Open Eye. All right. Moving right along. I've told you this a couple of times. I think it has some significance, especially right now. I was just following orders. There's no excuse. Well, here's where things get deadly serious. PBS is reporting that U.S. military personnel active duty, not retirees, are now seeking outside legal advice because the Orange Disaster's latest commands are so blatantly unlawful, they're afraid of being prosecuted for carrying them out. And they should be. Because these aren't harmless policy disputes. These aren't gray areas. These aren't borderline cases. Trump is ordering the U.S. military to build up small civilian boats in the Caribbean and deploy troops into American cities, both illegal, both unconstitutional, both authoritarian paragraphs straight out of a dictator's handbook. And here's the part the public needs to understand. A president can use lethal force only if Congress authorizes it, which it absolutely has not done. Or if there's an immediate, imminent threat to the nation, which does not exist in the form of unarmed fishermen 1,000 miles away. So this is not defense. This is not counterterrorism. This is not national security. This is extrajudicial killing, plain and simple. And some in the military chain of command executed these orders anyway. They didn't question it. They didn't hesitate. They didn't say, sir, this violates the law. They fired, they destroyed, they killed. And now they're scrambling for legal counsel. Well, they're right to be scared because there's one principle that is echoed through every war crime. Every war crime tribunal. Every military law class, every case study from Nuremberg to Malaya to Abu Ghraib. I was just following orders is not a defense. Not then, not now, not ever. That phrase has been rejected by every court of international law for nearly 80 years. It's been rejected by U.S. military law since the founding of modern armed forces. It is literally codified into the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Unlawful orders must be refused. Not should, must. A soldier's duty is not blind obedience. A soldier's duty is lawful obedience. A soldier's duty is to the Constitution, not to a man. And when you knowingly carry out an illegal order, when you fire a missile at civilians because a corrupt president told you to, you own that action. You wear it. It follows you. It doesn't disappear because someone higher up gave the command. Let's be even clearer. War crimes do not erase themselves just because you salute. War crimes do not become legal because you got yelled at by a superior. War crimes do not vanish because the president said do it anyway. Some service members are waking up and some are refusing. Some are seeking outside counsel before they get dragged into criminality. But others cross the line. Others fired, others killed, others obeyed orders they knew or damn well should have known were illegal. And when this is all over, there will be investigations. There will be tribunals. There will be accountability. And when the question comes, because it always comes, why did you do it? Those 4 little words won't save them. I was just following orders. It's not a shield. It's not a loophole. It's not an excuse. It's just an admission of guilt. And that's why right now the U.S. military is walking through a constitutional minefield. One that the Orange Disaster built. One that he is gleefully detonating, and one that will leave lasting scars on men and women ordered to carry out his madness. There are 2 kinds of people in uniform when this era ends. Those who refuse to betray the Constitution, and those who will spend the rest of their lives explaining why they did. Hey, Steve, I see you. Yeah, what's up, Brother James? All right. Trump went online, that's how I brought this up, and declared the 6 members of Congress had committed seditious behavior, and then added the phrase, punishable by death. A sitting U.S. president openly suggesting that lawmakers could be executed. That happened on record, in public. Should be the biggest news every day, in repeated cycle. Yet, America treats it like it's another Tuesday in the meltdown circus. See, that's where he got us. Because it's no longer breaking news. Okay? Breaking news. That's not exciting anymore. Doesn't mean a lot. Because now, when newscasters come on, they should say, guess what this son of a bitch did now? And let's walk through what actually occurred here. 6 Democratic lawmakers released a short, calm, factual video reminding U.S. service members of a basic rule etched into military law. You must refuse illegal orders, full stop. Not a radical message, not a coup attempt, not undermining the troops. It's literally what every recruit is taught in basic training. And that simple reminder that the Constitution outranks the president triggered the orange disaster into a rage spiral. He accused them of inciting insurrection. He got a goddamn nerve. He used words like treason and death penalty as if they were punctuation marks. Then he amplified supporters calling for those lawmakers to be arrested. And here's where it gets darker. Those 6 lawmakers are now receiving death threats from Trump supporters. Not metaphorical threats. Not online insults, real threats. Threats that have forced some of them to increase security. Threats that law enforcement agencies are now investigating. Threats that trace back to the very rhetoric the president himself poured gasoline on. This is not a theoretical discussion. This is real-world escalation with real-world consequences. Now let's address the question that every serious journalist, every constitutional scholar, and every elected official should be asking. What consequences should the Trump regime face when a president's words directly fuel threats against elected officials? Because there are standards. There are guardrails. Or at least there used to be. Okay? A president is not supposed to target political opponents with death penalty language. A president is not supposed to accuse lawmakers of treason for stating established law. A president is not supposed to amplify calls for their arrests. A president is not supposed to create an atmosphere where threats multiply and lawmakers fear for their lives. Those actions clash with constitutional norm, democratic stability, and the oath a president swears to uphold. And when a president's rhetoric spills into real danger, when people begin receiving threats because he elevated their names onto a hit list of political enemies, that's not free speech. That's not political combat. That's a profound abuse of office. The consequences for behavior like this should be rooted in accountability, not vengeance. Accountability means official investigations into whether presidential rhetoric incited targeted harassment. Accountability means congressional scrutiny into abuse of power, independent review of whether presidential communication endangered public officials. Accountability means public transparency about security threats triggered by presidential statements. These are not partisan measures, excuse me. They're democratic safeguards, the kind designed to prevent power from mutating into intimidation. Because once a president discovers that he can label critics as traitors, float the idea of executing them, watch his supporters send death threats, and still face no consequences, that's when the erosion becomes irreversible. Authoritarianism doesn't announce itself with tanks. It starts with language. It starts with testing the public's silence. It starts with calling opponents enemies of the state. It starts with seeing who can be threatened into submission. So let's stop pretending this is normal. Let's stop acting like this is political jousting. The moment a president's words put lawmakers' lives in danger, the country has already crossed into very dangerous territory. And America needs to understand with full clarity the seriousness of that moment. It's an open eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. All right. Let's keep it moving. Listen to this quote. It's from Angela Davis. When children attend schools that place greater value on discipline and security than on knowledge and intellectual development, they are attending prep schools for prison. That's exactly what they're doing. Let's sit with that for a second, because Angela wasn't offering a metaphor, she was diagnosing a system. What we call the school to prison pipeline didn't just spout up out of thin air. It was engineered, designed, blueprinted by the same power structures that profit from black pain, black bodies, and black futures cut short. And you can see it clearly in the schools that treat our children like suspects instead of scholars. Metal detectors with no microscope. Police officers but no counselors. Suspension rooms but no science labs. Punishment systems but no art programs. Rules so tight they choke a child's imagination before it even takes its first breath. They call it discipline. They call it order. They call it safety. The let's tell the truth is domestication. It's conditioning. It's training for confinement. When a child's first experience of authority is a uniform, a threat, or a criminalized gaze, you are not educating that child. You are prepping them, grooming them, easing them into the rhythms of surveillance, control, and state violence that will greet them again at 18, or tragically even earlier. And why is it always our children? Why is it always predominantly black, brown, poor, immigrant, marginalized communities that get the school as a containment center model, while suburban children get the school as a springboard to the future? Because this nation decided long ago that certain children are meant to be cultivated and others are meant to be controlled. Certain children are investments, others are commodities. Angela Davis saw the architecture. She saw how the prison industrial complex extended its nasty fingers backwards in the kindergarten classrooms, testing for compliance, punishing for normal childhood behavior, marking kids with troublemaker and disruptive before they even know how to spell the words being used against them. And then we pretend to be shocked when those same children grow up fighting a system that has been fighting them since age 5. Let's be unequivocal here. A school with more police than teachers is not a school. A school where curiosity is suspicious is not a school. A school where black children are treated like future inmates is not a school. It's an indoctrination center for incarceration. And we need to call it what it is. And this country really wanted safer communities, stronger students, and empowered young people. They would invest in libraries, not lockdown drills. In mental health counselors, not armed officers. In restorative justice, not criminalization. In the full, magnificent intellectual potential of black children who have been surviving a system that fears their brilliance more than anything else. Angela Davis was warning us. You cannot expect freedom outcomes from captivity classrooms. Our children deserve more than training for cages. They deserve spaces where their minds are nourished, their questions welcomed, their culture respected, and their power encouraged. Because a liberated education is the first step toward a liberated people. And until we fight for that, the pipeline stays open, the system stays fed, and our children stay targeted. Not on our watch. Stay woke. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Y'all been paying attention? Tell you about what was hot in the news this week. Okay. And it brings up something that I mentioned in the past. Okay, you gotta recognize the habits of our institutions. What they do defines them. And it brings me to this. The medical profession is to black women what cops are to black men. Let's stop whispering and say it plain. The medical profession is to black women what police are to black men. Different uniforms, same disregard. Different buildings, same deadly outcome. The hospital gown has become another version of the traffic stop. A place where black life hangs in the balance, while the people sworn to care treat us like an inconvenience. Hey, Patrice, I see you. And now the world has seen it again. This week, a viral video ripped across TikTok. A pregnant black woman, Carrie Jones, doubled over, screaming in pain, folded into a wheelchair in the waiting room of a Dallas Regional Medical Center. Her mother recording, her daughter crying out, and that nurse, allegedly a white nurse, cold as a badge in a blue uniform, unbothered, unhurried, unmoved. The nurse kept asking intake questions while the black woman was clearly in medical crisis. Because that's what racism in healthcare looks like. It's not always slurs, it's dismissal, delay, disbelief. It's the quiet violence of you'll be fine, while your insides are tearing apart. It's the deadly assumption that black people don't feel pain like others. It's the institutional arrogance that has killed black women at 3 times the rate of white women in childbirth. Carrie Jones sat in what waiting area for over 30 minutes? In that waiting area. She sat in that waiting area for over 30 minutes. 30 minutes of agony. 30 minutes of neglect. 30 minutes of being seen but not valued. And when she finally got medical attention, she gave birth 12 minutes later. Let me say that again. 12 minutes later. Her baby came into this world with his eyes open. Something her family says was caused by stress and trauma before his first breath. Let that sit with you. Stress and trauma before his first breath. He came into the world traumatized. For black women in America, that's not a metaphor. That's lived reality. The womb isn't even safe from systemic violence. The hospital responded with the same robotic language we hear from police departments after a shooting. We're reviewing the situation. We can't comment due to privacy laws. Translation, we're protecting ourselves, not the patient. But because the script is always the same. When a black woman cries out in pain, institutions close rank instead of opening compassion. Medical racism isn't an accident, it's a system. A system rooted in false science that said black women don't feel pain. A system built on the bodies of enslaved black women used for gynecological experiments without anesthesia. A system that treats black motherhood as optional, disposable, and expendable. That's why Serena Williams had to diagnose her own blood clots. Why black maternal mortality rivals third world conditions. Why black folks walk into hospitals wondering if we'll walk out. Black men fear the cop's knee. Black women fear the doctor's shrug. Oppression just changes outfits. Carrie Jones deserved urgency. She deserved care. She deserved humanity. But too often, black women only get those things after a video goes viral, after an investigation, after a tragedy that should never have happened. We don't need another task force. We need accountability. We need consequences. We need a healthcare system that sees black pain as real, black bodies as human, black motherhood as sacred, not disposable. Because if the medical system continues acting like law enforcement, weaponizing neglect, normalizing indifference, and criminalizing black suffering, then black women will continue to face danger where care is supposed to live. And we are done dying quietly. You're done suffering politely. You're done being patient in waiting rooms of institutions that refuse to see our humanity. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Cowards, losers, thugs. You have bad credit, no morals, you violent, you a J6 veteran, January 6th veteran, step right on up. Man, we got a job for you. Introducing ICE, America's favorite dumping ground for people too cool for customer service or too incompetent for real law enforcement. Have a history of separating families? No worries, you'll fit right in. You want to beat up seniors who survived dictators, deserts, and decades of life before you couldn't handle a life you couldn't handle for 5 minutes? Fantastic. We'll hand you a badge, a uniform, and no oversight. Love destroying lives, but hate admitting it? You're in luck. ICE calls that public safety. You ever dream of racial profiling your way to a government position? We thought you might. And don't worry, nobody here reads the Constitution any goddamn way. And the perks. Oh, you earn more than teachers. Because nothing says national values like paying educators in scrap while rewarding cruelty with overtime. You want to invade schools? ICE will hand you a clipboard, a tactical vest, and the full machinery of state-sponsored intimidation. But wait a minute. There's more. Yeah. The consequences, the fine print ICE hopes you won't read. Sign up today, and in 10, 20 years, you can look forward to international tribunals calling your actions human rights violations. Oops, who knew kidnapping toddlers would age badly? Yeah. You can look forward to congressional hearings where your supervisors suddenly don't recall. Don't worry, they'll still remember your name when it's time to throw somebody under the bus. Oh, yeah. You can look forward to lawsuits stacked taller than your GED scores. Unqualified. Qualified immunity ain't gonna save your sorry ass. Chump. Oh, you can look forward to documentaries where former colleagues describe you as misguided and not the sharpest baton in the rack. Oh, Netflix loves a villain. Thanks for your service. The moment your kids grow up, Google your name and ask why you work for a federal hate machine. Try explaining, I was just following orders in 2035. Let me know how that goes. The day ICE is finally dismantled and you're left with a resume that reads like a war crime, and of course your future job hunt. Hi, I used to terrorize families at 4 a.m. Do you need anyone to stock produce? Dumbass. So yes, join ICE, where cruelty is a qualification, empathy is a liability, and history is already preparing the indictment. Stay woke. All right. Moving right along. You know what? They understand. Colonizers doing what colonizers do. Let me tell you about that. 2 Texas men, Gavin Weisenberg and Tanner Thomas, got indicted for plotting to invade a Haitian island, wipe out the men, and enslave the women and children. And I want you to hear this clearly. This is not shocking. It's not surprising. It's not an anomaly. This is colonialism. Raw, uncut, en masse, unashamed. Oh, white supremacy didn't slip up. It just said the quiet part out loud. This is the same colonizer DNA that turned entire continents into graveyards. That turned Africa into a crime scene. That turned the Caribbean into a plantation economy and turned indigenous land into a settler empire. It's the same mindset that burned black towns, massacred black soldiers, raped black women, sterilized black girls, and then had the nerve to call it civilization. These men didn't come up with anything. They're plagiarists. They're thieves of an ancient evil. They're reenacting the oldest European tradition. Kill the men, enslave the women, steal the land, rewrite the history. And of course, they set their eyes on Haiti. Of course. Because Haiti is the reminder. Haiti is the wound in colonial memory that never closes. Haiti is the wound that reminds that black people once whipped an empire and declared themselves free. Haiti is the grave where European supremacy went to die in 1804. So colonizers have spent every day since trying to resurrect the chains. This wasn't a random island on a map. This was a revenge fantasy, a failed manifest destiny fan fiction. 2 wannabe conquistadors trying to recreate slavery like it's a do-it-yourself project. And let's talk about the audacity. 2 dudes from Texas sitting in some living room garage or some trailer park, convinced they had the right to invade sovereign land and commit genocide. That kind of arrogance is not individual pathology. It's cultural inheritance. It's centuries of propaganda whispering. The world is yours to take if you're white enough, armed enough, and shameless enough. This is why I say America doesn't just produce colonizers, it manufactures them. In schools, in churches, in movies, in its foreign policy. Colonial thinking is one of this country's oldest exports. And now, it's so normalized that any random man with a passport and a gun thinks he can reboot slavery on the weekend. So yes, charge them, prosecute them, bury them in indictments. But if you think the problem stops with these 2, you're still asleep. Because this is not just criminal behavior. This is worldview, a lineage, a system, a disease. And until colonial thinking is burned at the roots, socially, politically, culturally, spiritually, colonizers will keep doing what colonizers do. Killing, stealing, enslaving, and calling it destiny. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. Yeah. Even if it hurts. Where's that phrase come from? The one I've used many times. We don't mind if it hurts us as long as it don't help them. This Pennsylvania man who proudly pulled the lever for Donald Trump now says he feels betrayed. Not confused, not disappointed. Betrayed. Yes, indeed, Sister Sherry. They must not have heard about the Haitian Revolution. They would have found out the hard way. But anyway, this Pennsylvania man, he wrote that backing Trump was an act of hope. A belief that maybe, just maybe, someone was finally speaking for people like him. Yeah. But what he got instead was the oldest American con, a billionaire carnival barker selling rage, resentment, and revenge disguised as change. He said Trump completely swindled him. That's what happened when you vote for the hate and dress it up as hope. That's what happens when you mistake loudness for leadership. That's what happens when a man tells you he's fighting for you, but every policy, every action, every grift is designed only to benefit him. He says his values were ignored. Of course they were. Because Trump doesn't value anything but power and applause. He doesn't build movements, he builds cults. He doesn't inspire loyalty, he demands obedience. And once he gets your vote, your voice, your belief, he's done with you. You're expendable. So now he's disillusioned. But the truth is simple. If you vote for oppression, don't be shocked when the oppression shows up at your door. Trump didn't change. He didn't suddenly become someone he wasn't. You just finally saw the man behind the mask, the grifter behind the flag, the con behind the campaign. And that feeling in your gut, that's not betrayal. That's clarity. The kind of feet that hits like a brick through a window. Yeah. But that pounding in your skull, that migraine that feels like thunder behind your ears, that's cognitive dissonance detonating. That's your mind waking up from the political coma. That's your conscience screaming, you backed a tyrant. And now you're shocked he acted like one. That's the crash of false hope slamming in the hard truth. Because you didn't just vote for a man, you voted for a myth. A myth made from cheap slogans, grievance politics, and spray tan nationalism. You voted for a man who told you he was your champion while robbing you blind. You didn't listen to LBJ, huh? And now that mask then fell off. Your brain is doing the math you refused to do 4 years ago. You realize the fighter you supported wasn't fighting for you. He was fighting you. Your future, your freedoms, your country, your dignity. He played you like a slot machine that only paid out in anger and resentment. And now you sit here with the headache of the century trying to reconcile these two incompatible truths. I believe the lies. The lies were never meant to help me. And that tension you feel, that's your worldview splitting at the seams. That's the pain of realizing you were defending a man who wouldn't cross the street to save you from drowning. He wouldn't spit in your mouth if your teeth was on fire. But now you see it. Now the wool is off your eyes. Now you understand exactly what you got in exchange for your loyalty. Nothing but embarrassment and a front row seat to your own political humiliation. So let's end this on a real note. Let's cut the lights and speak plainly. Now, with all you know, with everything you feel right now, with this betrayal burning in your chest and that cognitive dissonance rattling your skull, if you had known this during the last election, if you had seen the future, the lies, the chaos, the corruption, tell me. Tell me, who would you have voted for? Go ahead, say it out loud. Lean in close and whisper if you have to. Because we both know the answer. The irony, the punchline, the cosmic joke. Even with this pain, all this regret, all this clarity, you still would not have voted for justice, equity, or truth. Dumbass. You just be mad you couldn't vote for a better kind man. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. All right. You know, in any sane nation, any nation with a functioning moral compass, a working nervous system, and even a flicker of civic self-respect, Donald J. Trump would have been impeached, removed, barred, banished, and politically composted years ago. That's not radical. That's just basic hygiene. But America, no. America's decided to do something spectacularly deranged. It elected a maniac criminal twice. Once in full ignorance and once in full knowledge. This country didn't just ignore the sirens. It dove headfirst into the burning building and called it patriotism. This is the same nation that would throw the book at a shoplifter behind a nuclear arsenal to a conspiracy-soaked mob boss. The same country that will arrest you for missing a court date but shrug when a president leads an insurrection. The same place where millions look at a walking rap sheet in a red tie and say, yes, that's my savior. We're not dealing with a system crisis. We're dealing with a sanity crisis. And the receipts are written in indictments, mugshots, and orange makeup. A sane nation would have stopped this madness before it started. A sane nation would have recognized the danger before the first rally, the first lie, the first fascist whisper. A sane nation would have looked at a career criminal with the emotional stability of a broken light switch and said, let's give him everything. And here's your semi-regular reminder. The problem isn't just Trump. It's the country that keeps choosing him. The country that excuses him. The country that treats the Constitution like a suggestion and democracy like it's a scratch-off ticket. We're not just fighting a man, we're fighting a national addiction that chaos dressed up as leadership. Until America sobers up, the nightmare continues. And when his presidency is finally over, it should not be archived. It should be annulled, erased, purged. Not honored, not cataloged, not polished for future generations. It should be condemned as the 4-year assault it was. No library, no portrait, no titles, no honor. You don't build a monument for a man who tried to burn the goddamn country down. Y'all didn't learn that from the Civil War. You don't hang a portrait of a traitor in the people's house. You don't honor a presidency built on lies, racism, corruption, and treachery. You don't pretend it was normal when we all watched it rock this nation from the inside out. Trump didn't govern, he terrorized. He didn't lead, he looted. He didn't protect democracy, he weaponized ignorance and unleashed it on the world. January 6th wasn't just a riot. It was the logical conclusion of electing a con man with a cult instead of a conscience. A presidential library for what? To display classified documents stolen like souvenirs? To showcase the kids ripped from their parents? To achieve the tweets that incited violence, or to archive the tweets, to memorialize the pandemic death toll inflated by his stupidity? No. Matter of fact, hell no. You don't curate a legacy like that. You quarantine it. You wall it off like the toxic waste it is. You mark it with a skull and crossbones and teach future generations this is what happens when a nation lets fascism flirt its way to power. When all is said and done, Trump deserves one thing from history, a warning label. A bullet point in the chapter of failed tyrants. A case study in national self-defense. A reminder that America almost lost everything because one man's ego grew faster than the courage of the people who could have stopped him. His presidency shouldn't be remembered. It should be repudiated, rejected, and removed from the realm of honor forever. And that's being polite. Now, let me tell you something. Listen up here. When Jeffrey damn Epstein, the global trafficker, the child predator kingpin, the man whose private island was a graveyard of innocence, when that demon looks at Donald Trump and says, he's the worst man I ever met, not one decent cell in his body, that's not an accusation, that's a funeral bell. Because when the devil points a bloody finger and says, that one scares me, you better believe you're looking at something darker than the dark. And that is exactly what these emails show. Not speculation, not rumor, not Twitter threats or Twitter threads, receipts. Over 1,670 emails where Trump's name shows up in Epstein's files. More than any politician, any businessman, any elite in Epstein's orbit. And the question ain't, why is Trump in the emails? The real question is, why was everybody silent when they saw them? How many people knew and did nothing? How many institutions protected the predator in chief? Let's walk into the fire. Epstein tells his brother Putin might have photos Trump blowing bubble. Epstein tells Larry Summers he's met evil men, but none as bad as Trump. Epstein tells a New York Times reporter Trump is evil beyond belief. Epstein offers photos of Trump with underage girls in his kitchen. Epstein says he spent Thanksgiving with Trump in 2017 while Trump was president. Epstein says he alone had enough to take Trump down. And then Epstein ends up dead in federal custody under Trump's Department of Justice. Come on now. Don't play stupid. Adults know exactly what we're looking at. A reporter asked Trump what Epstein might know about the girls, and Trump loses it. Shaking, red face. How'd that work? With the orange paint on, the red face. Barking at her like a cornered animal on Air Force One. You don't act like that when you're innocent. You act like that when someone touches the nerve you pray nobody ever finds. Trump didn't explain a thing. He didn't answer a thing. He didn't claim a thing. What did he do? He tried to weaponize the Department of Justice against Democrats. He demanded investigations of everybody but himself and his 1,670 appearances in Epstein's communications. That is the response of a guilty man. Not a misunderstood man, not a persecuted man, a guilty, terrified, cornered predator watching the walls close in. And here's the part that chills the blood. When a monster like Epstein says Trump is the worst man I ever met. Yeah, that's what he said. Shut up, piggy. When Epstein said Trump is the worst man he ever met, that means something. Epstein met oligarchs, kings, dictators, armed dealers, corrupt billionaires, shadow state intelligence freaks. He sat at tables with the worst humanity produces. And out of all of them, he says Donald Trump is the darkest soul we ever encountered. If the devil calls you evil, you're evil without measurement. So let's be clear for the people in the back. This meltdown isn't about lies, it's about truth. Trump spent decades burying in cement. Truth he knows that can end him. Truth he knows can expose him. Truth he knows can link him to crimes against children, crimes against humanity, crimes against the very soul of this country. This man ain't panicking because he's innocent. He's panicking because the receipts finally caught up. And I'm going to say this straight. If Donald Trump is as innocent as he screams, he'd be begging for these documents to drop. He wants the world to see everything. He's staying tall. Instead, we see a man running. We see a man shaking, a man lashing out like a rabid dog because the truth is peeling the paint, the orange paint, off his lies. He's not afraid of slander. He's afraid of evidence. He's afraid of Epstein's words, Epstein's files, Epstein's memories. Because when the devil himself says you're the worst he's ever known, that's not a warning. That's a verdict. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Listen, my children of the sun, before we shut it down for the day, let me lead with this. We are living in a moment where truth is under attack. History is being rewritten by people who never understood it, and justice is treated like an optional accessory instead of a guaranteed right. But here's the thing. Every generation has had its storm, and every generation produced people who refuse to get swept away by it. We are those people. Right now, right here. We don't have the luxury of apathy. And we damn sure don't have the time to pretend we don't see what's happening. Every headline, every injustice, every assault on our humanity is a reminder that silence is complicity and neutrality is surrender. But the Open Eye family, we don't surrender. We don't close our eyes. We stay vigilant. We stay engaged. We stay connected to our communities, our elders, our youth, our culture, and our truth. And let me be clear. Hope is not naive. Hope is not passive. Hope is discipline. Hope is the work we put in between the victories. Hope is what we carry into every fight, every meeting, every ballot, every protest, every conversation where we refuse to shrink ourselves to make someone else comfortable. So as you go about your weekend, remember, your voice matters. Your presence matters. Your consciousness matters. And when the world tries to lull you into complacency, tries to rock you back to sleep, don't let it. Keep your spirit sharp, your principles uncompromising, and your heart aligned with liberation. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for joining us. I hope you learned something, because I learned something before I got here. Open my eyes to truth and reality. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This is Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. And as we always tell you, global African supremacy. And more on that coming up. The world was a better place when the black man ruled.